Kelsey, good morning. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Congratulations on the fix.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be chatting.
So let's start a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the sci-fi thriller.
Oh gosh, so wide ranging. I've devoted 12 years of my life to this film, and there were many years I thought I was crazy that I kept fighting to get it made and didn't know if it was ever going to happen, if it was just a pipe dream. And the gratitude I feel that it was made and that it's about to be released is I can't even put into words. I'm just exceptionally grateful that I got to make this movie.
What makes Grace Van Dien, the perfect lead for this? Because I thought she was great.
Yeah, no, Grace is wonderful. We were very lucky for her to jump on board in the 11th hour and sort of save us when our original actress suddenly wasn't able to do the role. And she was really so brave, and so just brought so many layers to the character and really understood where Ella was coming from as a character and all of the nuances there, and brings such a beautiful vulnerability as well. To the part that really helps especially when you're doing a character that starts off not particularly likable, and showing like all of that she did such a beautiful job of showing the cracks of why Ella was the way she was, and we were very lucky to have her on board for those reasons.
Yeah, I saw that and I think I enjoyed that, especially as we got further along the movie, and especially towards the end. I'll keep that a little vague. Where does the story stem from for you? Because it was really pretty the way it was presented. I'll be honest, especially uh, I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, thank you so much. Wow. Well, yeah, I wrote the original draft of the script in 2013, so it's funny for me thinking about like where did it stem from? Where was my mind in 2013? But I know something that has always resonated with me since I was a child, and something that I've been struck by, and not necessarily in a positive way, like in a concerned way, is how much the way we are perceived by others impacts how we are treated, and then in turn influences how we engage with the world. There's cause and effect, right? Like we receive, and then what we give is influenced by what we receive. So, and I wanted to explore that in a sci-fi, in a grounded sci-fi context, in a way that was heightened and elevated, but really speaks to a lot of real world issues that I think are very pertinent and that I feel are worthy of more active discussion and interrogation.
Yeah, so you at the foundation, you have the themes that you want to present. How do you develop a dystopian future? What do you decide in kind of the rules of what you think that may look like? Because I always find that really interesting in sci-fi films.
Great question. I'm a massive sci-fi nerd. I grew up reading a lot of science fiction and fantasy, and I think from a world building point of view, authenticity is actually really important to me. Even if it's made make believe, I want to feel like the science I'm creating for the world makes sense. So I actually do a lot of research, and I do a lot of reading about what's currently cutting edge in terms of different fields in our real world, so that whatever I create, or whatever pseudoscience I create, or whatever rules of the universe I create is actually based on real life principles, within the realm of believability or possibility. So I think I'm very research driven in that sense. So when I'm like, okay, if I want to use this device, that there's a toxic compound in the atmosphere, what could cause that? Why would that happen? Is like, in this case, it's a human problem. We caused it, of course. How did we cause that? And just trying to find the best possible rules for the world that support the questions and the themes that we explore with the characters.
I want to talk a little bit more about how you handled Ella's uh, kind of transformation, but the film nerd in me, knowing that this is not a big budget film, you were able to accomplish so much in it with your scenes and the way you did make it look like a dystopian future, and then with kind of the characters and all. Um, how did you manage to really sell it, and maybe not necessarily on a big budget?
wonderful teamwork with all across all departments, and looking and thinking very creatively about the location choices that we had in Cape Town, which are absolutely phenomenal. One of the best things about Cape Town is the spectacular locations and how much you can do with them. And we were creating, building a world and creating, like, the Aethera corporation from multiple different locations around the city. But it was always a juggling act of like, okay, what we show and what we don't show, right? Because it's as much about omission as about addition. When building any form of world, particularly a dystopia, and what were very easy devices we could use to show that this world was slightly different than our own, that were budget friendly. And I think, like, you just working in concert with production design, costume, even to a degree, I would say cinematography, lighting, across the board, how we send the message or subliminally send the message that we want to send with the world. And like oftentimes very subtle things, just like light, like our approach to lighting a scene, approach to like the color scheme, reads something or says something to an audience that they're not necessarily consciously aware of, but we know it's going to send that message. And we're very careful to sort of integrate all of those things.
One of the things I found really impressive of it, because I was like, man, this feels like it's a much bigger production than it probably is, but that has to be, great choices that were made. And I do so now moving on to Ella, like how did you approach kind of um without necessarily, I guess, giving too much away of what it really is, or your um inspiration behind it, because I like that reveal, your transformation of Ella as far as, how she was becoming something else because of the drug that she took.
In terms of how we achieved the look, or
Yes.
in terms of the story. Okay. So I'm a big, I like to say I'm an old Star Wars filmmaker. I'm not a new Star Wars filmmaker. I like to do as much in camera as possible, whenever possible, and I love the tangibility. So the goal was always to do as much as we could with prosthetics and then elevate and supplement with VFX. What ended up happening is, when we had the casting change in pre-production, we'd already put a considerable amount of money and resources into prosthetics for the original actress, which we didn't have the budget to redo. So I think our original vision was to do about 60% prosthetics, 40% VFX, and then that ended up sort of flopping and ending up being about 60% VFX and 40% prosthetics. But both were hugely important for creating Ella's look, and something that we worked really hard on to deliver in as budget friendly a way as possible, and down to even her transformation and what happens to her. We broke that up into different phases so that we could be very, very smart and savvy with what we saw and when, to maximize our budget.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it was very subtle things that was happening, and then we were almost kind of hiding some of the things back and forth, I think kept me even more interested, because I was like, wait, is there more is it, can you see more of it? What's going on? What's happening? And I think it was very smart, kept me engaged. Um
Amazing. I'm so glad.
yeah, and then the other the one question I do have, and I don't know how to ask this because well, we're not giving anything away. Is this something that you plan maybe to have multiple films for, going forward?
I would love to, but it all depends on how well this one does, right?
Yes.
I've been spending the last couple of weeks doing like really full on grassroots marketing just to try to get the word out on the film. We don't have much budget to speak of for marketing and PR. It's very, very low compared to most projects even of this size. So that managed to get out into the world. And one of the reasons I'm so grateful to do these interviews and have these conversations is we're just trying to get as many people as possible to know the film exists. For example, like our distributor has told us that the more pre-orders we can get on Apple TV, the better, because if we get enough pre-orders, and we're about 60% of the way to that goal, but we're still pushing, is if Apple's like, oh, this film has got X number of pre-orders, and the magic number is 200, which you'd think would be a small number, but it's actually not considered a small number. If you get enough pre-orders, then they feature the film on their storefront.